If love was a sport, Emeka would have been disqualified for playing too many matches at once. Emeka Okafor was the kind of man who thought his phone's battery percentage should match the number of girlfriends he had, always above 80. At 25, this Lagos-based banker had perfected the act of juggling relationships like a circus performer, except his balls were hats, and he was bound to drop them all. His crumpled two-bedroom apartment in Surulere served as a mission control for his elaborate romantic operations, with multiple phones charging on his nightstand and a color-coded calendar that would make a project manager weep with envy. "Bro, you are playing with fire oh," his roommates Chido warned one evening, watching Emeka frantically switch between WhatsApp chats. The room was filled with blue glow of phone screens as Emeka's fingers danced across multiple devices like a pianist playing a deadly symphony. "You have Aduni thinking you are taking her to your village next month. Kemi believes she's your one and only. And Blessing, abeg, what did you tell Blessing?" Emeka grinned, his fingers dancing across his phone screen with the confidence of a man who believed he had outsmarted love itself. "Blessing thinks I'm a born-again Christian who is waiting for marriage. I even bought a Bible." He held up a leather-bound King James version that still had its price tag tucked between the pages. "It cost me 5,000 naira at CMS, but it's worth every kobo. She thinks I'm studying to become a deacon." "Jesus Christ," Chidi muttered, shaking his head while folding his arm across his chest. The irony wasn't lost on him that his roommate was using the Lord's name in vain while simultaneously using the Lord's book to deceive an innocent church girl. "Exactly, that's what I told her yesterday. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior." Emeka chuckled at his own cleverness. She was so moved, she started crying and said she knew God had sent her the right man. I almost felt bad. Almost though. Emeka's system was foolproof, or so he thought. His romantic schedule were more organized than the Lagos state government budget and twice as fictional. Monday through Wednesday belonged to Aduni, a sharp-minded banker from Victoria Island who loved expensive dinner dates and believed Emeka was focusing on building his career, hence why he couldn't meet her every day. She worked long hours at the bank and appreciated a man who seemed to understand the demands of professional ambition, never questioning why his career focus conveniently aligned with her busiest work days. Thursdays and Fridays were reserved for Kemi, a talented fashion designer in Ikeja who thought Emeka traveled frequently for work. Her creative schedule meant she preferred weekends free for her designs, making Thursday's Friday arrangement perfect for both of them. Also, she believed Emeka had convinced her that he was in international sales, which required constant travel to Port Harcourt, Abuja, and sometimes even Ghana. The lie was so elaborate that he memorized flight schedules and hotel names, casually dropping details about his business trips that made Kemi proud to be dating such a successful worldly man. Weekends, that was Blessing's time, the devout church girl from Surulere, who believed Emeka spent weekdays in praying and fasting, preparing his heart for their godly courtship. She attended Fire Mountain Ministries, where she testified about her man of God, who was so spiritual that he needed 5 days of preparation before he could be in her presence. The congregation praised God for sending her such a dedicated Christian man, and Blessing glowed with pride every Sunday when she shared how Emeka would quote scriptures during their conversations. Then there was Fumi, his emergency girlfriend for special occasions, a medical student at the University of Lagos who thought she was his main girlfriend but understood that his demanding job meant irregular schedules, and somewhere in the background, a rotating cast of potentials he kept in what he called reserves, women he had met at club, true friends, or on social media who were being slowly groomed for possible promotion to the main roster. "You know what your problem is?" asked his colleague Tunde during a lunch at their office cafeteria, stabbing his piece of meat with unnecessary force. The cafeteria was buzzing with usual afternoon crowd, but Tunde's voice carried a serious tone that made several nearby colleagues glance over. "You think you are smart, but you are actually just organized stupid. Guy, see this one oh." Emeka laughed, stabbing his jollof rice and gesturing with his fork like a conductor leading an orchestra. "I have everything under control. Each girl gets what she wants, and I get what I want. Nobody's complaining, man." "Until they find out," Tunde warned, his voice dropping into a whisper as he looked around the cafeteria. "Guy, this is Lagos oh. Lagos is not as big as you think. And women talk. They have networks that make the CIA look like amateur hour." He had seen too many men fall victims of their own arrogance, and something about Emeka's casual confidence made him deeply uncomfortable. "Find out Bawo, how now? I don't post pictures on social media with any of them. I have different numbers for different girls. MTN for Aduni, Glo for Kemi, Airtel for Blessing, and Nine Mobile for Fumi. I even have a fake Instagram account for Blessing, where I post only Bible verses." Emeka pulled out his phones to demonstrate, proud of his organized skills. "Look, I even have different ringtones. When Aduni calls, it plays Sweet Mother. When Kemi calls, it's Gentleman. Blessing gets What a Friend We Have in Jesus, and Fumi gets My Woman, My Everything." What Emeka didn't know was that Lagos, for all its size and seeming anonymity, could be surprisingly small. The city had a way of making strangers into neighbors and secrets into public knowledge, especially when those secrets involved multiple women who shopped at different markets, attended the same parties, and had friends who knew other friends. The web of connections in Lagos was tighter than a fisherman's net, and Emeka was about to find himself caught in. It started on a Thursday evening at the shopping mall in Lekki, a place where Lagos middle class went to see and be seen. Emeka was with Kemi, helping her pick out Ankara fabric for a new design collection she was working on. She had been explaining the cultural significance of different patterns when his phone buzzed with a text from Aduni. "Baby, can we meet today instead of tomorrow? I have a surprise for you, something that will make you very happy." Emeka's heart skipped a beat as he read the message, but he maintained his composure, quickly typing back, "Sorry babe, stuck in Abuja for work. Flight got delayed due to weather. Tomorrow is better. Can't wait to see your surprise though." He had become so practiced at lying that the words flowed from his fingers like water, smooth and effortless. "Who is that?" Kemi asked, noticing his furrowed brows as he stared at his phone screen. She had been holding up a piece of fabric, but her attention was now focused on her boyfriend's sudden tense expression. "Just work stress," Emeka smiled, slipping his arm around her waist and pulling her closer. "Nothing to worry about, babe. You know how these Abuja people can be, always changing meeting times at the last minute." He kissed her temple softly, a gesture that always worked to distract her from concerns. 20 minutes later, while they sat in the bustling food court, sharing chicken shawarma and discussing Kemi's upcoming fashion show. Emeka's blood pressure nearly hit the ceiling, walking directly towards them, shopping bags in hand, and a bright smile on her face was Aduni. She dressed in a flowing navy blue dress that made her look like she was floating, and her smile was so radiant that several people turned to look at her as she passed. "Emeka," she called out, waving enthusiastically with her free hand. "I thought you said you were in Abuja." Her voice carried across the food court, causing several other diners to look up from their meals with interest. Emeka's shawarma suddenly tasted like cardboard mixed with sand, and he could feel sweat beginning to form on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Kemi looked up from her meal, confused by the approaching woman who seemed to know her boyfriend very well. The food court, which had been filled with comfortable chatter of family and friends, suddenly felt like a stage where Emeka was about to perform the worst act of his life. "OMG, I thought you said you were in Abuja." Aduni reached their table, then paused, her bright smile flattering, as she noticed Kemi sitting close to Emeka. "And who is this?" Her voice carried a note of suspicion that made Emeka's stomach lurch. The silence stretched like a Lagos traffic jam during rush hour, heavy and suffocating. Emeka's brain went into overdrive, frantically searching for an explanation that would satisfy both women without arousing further suspicion. Around them, other diners had begun to notice the tension, and he could feel their curious stares like pinpricks on his skin. "Oh, Aduni, this is my cousin, Kemi. Kemi, meet Aduni, my business partner." The words stumbled out of his mouth like a confusion under torture, awkward and unconvincing even to his own ears. Both women stared at him with expressions that could have frozen the Lagos lagoon. Kemi raised an eyebrow, her artistic intuition picking up on the obvious lie. "Cousin? Since when do you call your baby cousin?" Her voice was dangerously quiet, the kind of calm that preceded a storm. "Baby?" Adoni's voice rose an octave, causing several nearby tables to turn and look at their unfolding drama. "Emeka, why is your cousin calling you baby?" What? No, that was, autocorrect," Emeka stammered, his usual charm deserting him when he needed it the most. "You know how these phones can be now, technology, right?" He let out a nervous laugh that sounded more like a dying goat than human expression. "Autocorrect changed cousin to baby?" Kemi stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the sudden quiet food court. "Emeka, what is going on here?" What followed next was a spectacular display of lies colliding with reality, like two downfall buses meeting head-on during Lagos rush hour. Aduni, being a banker with a sharp mind for details and inconsistencies, started asking questions with the precision of a prosecutor cross-examining a witness. Her professional training in dictating financial fraud had given her an excellent bullshit dictator, and every sensor was now screaming warnings. "So, if you are his business partner," Kemi asked Aduni, her voice taking on the tone of someone who was beginning to piece together a puzzle she didn't like, "what kind of business are you two in?" She crossed her arms and leaned back slightly, her designer instincts telling her that something about this picture was very wrong. We import and export," Emeka started, but his voice trailed off as he realized he had no idea what they supposedly imported and exported. His hands were shaking slightly, and he could feel his shirt beginning to stick to his back with perspiration. "Import and export what exactly?" Aduni crossed her arms, her banking training kicking in as she began to audit his story. Because last time I checked, you worked in marketing at Noon Bank and I work in corporate banking at First Bank. When exactly did we become business partners? Wait, Kemi's eyes narrowed as she processed this new information. You work in marketing? I thought you said you were in international trade. Her voice was getting louder, and more people in the food court were beginning to stare openly at their table. International marketing, Emeka said quickly, grasping at straws like a drowning man. I market internationally for the bank, international banking marketing. The explanation sounded ridiculous even to him, but he was desperate. To who? Mars? Adoni's voice dipped with sarcasm that could have corroded metal. Because I know everyone in international banking in this city, and your name has never come up in any meeting, conference, or even casual conversations. The situation escalated when Adoni pulled out her phone and started scrolling through her photos with the determination of a detective building a case. Kemi writes, let me show you some pictures of my boyfriend. Oh, wait, sorry, my business partner, and see if he looks familiar to you. Adoni, please, let's not. Emeka reached for her phone, but she pulled it from him like he was trying to steal government secrets. Don't touch me, she snapped, her voice carrying clearly across the food court. Kemi, look at this picture from last weekend. Does this look like a business meeting to you? She turned her phone screen towards Kemi, showing a photo of her and Emeka at a romantic dinner at Ocean Basket, complete with candles, wines, and Emeka's hand tenderly holding hers across the table. Kemi looked at the photos, her expression transitioning from confused to furious in record time. The photo showed Emeka gazing in Adoni's eyes with the same expression he had given her just last week when he told her she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Emeka, she said quietly, her voice trembling with barely controlled rage. You have 5 seconds to explain this before I pour my drink on your head. And this too, Adoni added, holding up a mango smoothie threateningly, because I'm starting to think this cousin story is complete bullshit. Before Emeka could manufacture another lie, his phone rang with the timing of a Nollywood plot twist. The caller ID, Blessing, and in his panic, his muscle memory kicked in. He answered the call without thinking, a decision that would haunt him for months to come. Mistakenly, his cheek clicked the speaker option and the call was on speak out. Hello, my king. Blessing's cheerful voice ran out clearly through the phone speaker, loud enough for half of the people in the food court to hear. How was your prayer meeting today? The Lord has been speaking to me about our future together. I had such a beautiful dream about our wedding last night. Kemi and Adoni looked at each other, then at Emeka, who had gone pale like a ghost. The color drained from his face so quickly that for a moment it looked like he might faint right there in the food court. Blessing, now is not a good time, Emeka stammered. But it was too late. The damage was done. And everyone within a 10-meter radius could hear the conversation. Who is Blessing? Both women asked in perfect unison, their voices harmonizing in a way that would have been beautiful if it weren't so terrifying. Is someone there with you? Blessing's voice continued from the phone, sweet and innocent as honey. I hope it's not those worldly friends trying to lead you astray from the path of righteousness. You know, Satan uses people to test our faiths. Adoni, with a decisive action of someone who had reached her limit, grabbed the phone from Emeka's weak grip. Hello, Blessing. This is Adoni. I think we need to talk, sister to sister. Adoni. Who is Adoni? My king. Why is another woman answering your phone? Blessing's voice carried a note of confusion and growing concern that made Emeka want to disappear into the floor. Your king? Kemi's voice could have cut through reinforced concrete. Really? Emeka? King? What are you? The Oba of deception? What followed was a three-way conversation that would have been hilarious if it weren't happening to Emeka. The food court had essentially become a live theater, with other diners abandoning their meals to watch the drama unfold. Some people were even recording on their phones, sensing this was the kind of content that would go viral on Lagos Twitter. Blessing, speaking through the phone which Adoni was now holding. Adoni herself and Kemi, standing with arms crossed, all began to piece together the truth within minutes. It was like watching three brilliant minds solve a complex equation, except the equation was Emeka's life, and the answer was his complete destruction. So, let me get this straight. Blessing's voice cracked through the speaker, her usual sweet tone taking on an edge that suggested her prayer warrior training was kicking in. He told me he spends Monday to Wednesdays in praying and fasting, seeking God's face for our relationship. But he's actually with you, Adoni. And he told me he travels Thursdays and Fridays for work. Adoni said, looking at Kemi with the dawning realization that they were all victims of the same elaborate scam. But he's actually with you? While telling me he's building his relationship with God on weekends, Kemi added, her voice heavy with disgust. But he's actually with you, Blessing. Emeka sat down heavily on his chair, feeling like a defendant who had just watched his alibi crumble in court. Ladies, I can explain. Explain what? All three ladies said simultaneously, their voices creating a chorus of righteous indignation that made nearby diners applaud simultaneously. Blessing immediately took a cab to the location to see truly if this was real or a joke. The confrontation moved from the food court to the parking lot, where the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on what had become an impromptu trial. Other shoppers slowed their pace or stopped entirely to watch the free entertainment. Some others whispering among themselves about the boy where they chop breakfast from three girls all at once. Emeka found himself surrounded by three increasingly angry women, each taking turns to expose his lies like prosecutors presenting evidence to a jury. Tell them about the Bible you bought, Adoni said mockingly, her banker's precision turning every word into a weapon. The one you said was for personal growth and deepening your relationship with Christ. I even helped you pick it out at CMS bookshop. Or about how you can't eat meat on Fridays because you are fasting for spiritual breakthrough, Kemi added, her creative mind now reconstructing all the lies with painful clarity. Meanwhile, you were just saving your appetite for church girlfriend Sunday rice. Church girlfriend, Blessing's voice rose to a pitch that could summon angels and demons simultaneously. I am not just a church girlfriend. I thought we were building a godly relationship. I've been celibate for 2 years, waiting for you. Celibate? Adoni laughed bitterly, the sound echoing across the parking lot. This man couldn't spell celibate if you spotted him the T and the C in it. A small crowd had gathered and someone had started live streaming on Instagram. Emeka noticed the phones pointing at him and felt his panic reach new heights. Please, can we discuss this privately? He begged, his voice cracking like a teenager's. Like how you privately dated all of us? Kemi shot back. Or like how you privately lied to our faces every single day? Or like how you privately made a mockery of my faith? Blessing's voice came through just when Emeka thought the situation couldn't possibly get worse. The universe decided to prove him wrong with the efficacy of a Lagos bus conductor collecting tea fare. Fumi, his emergency girlfriend, walked out of ShopRite's entrance with her medical school friends, their arms full of textbooks and groceries. She spotted the commotion from across the parking lot and approached with the curiosity of someone who had no idea she was about to become part of the main event. "Emeka, what's going on here?" Fumi asked, her voice carrying the innocent confusion of someone who still believed she was dating a faithful, if busy, marketing executive. The three women turned to her in perfect synchronization, like a choreographed dance routine performed by the gods of irony. The silence that followed was so profound that even Lagos traffic seemed to pause in respect for this moment. "Let me guess," Amaka said slowly. "Another business partner? Or maybe a cousin this time," Kemi added. "Actually," Fumi said, looking around at the circle of angry faces with growing alarm, "I'm his girlfriend. We've been dating for 6 months. He's been helping me with my medical school expenses." She pulled out her phone to show a photo of her and Emeka at a restaurant, both smiling happily at the camera. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the crowd of onlookers seemed to hold their breaths, sensing that they were witnessing something epic. Cars in the parking lot seemed to slow down as their drivers craned their necks to see what was happening. 6 months? Blessing's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of a woman's heart breaking in real time. "But I've been with him for 8 months, Kemi said, her voice hollow with the realization of just how thoroughly she had been deceived. 10 months, Aduni added quietly, her banking mind already calculating the emotional and financial investment she had made in what she now realized was complete fraud. 3 years, Blessing's voice cracked like dry wood in harmattan wind. 3 whole years, I've been praying for this man, believing God was preparing him to be my husband." Fumi looked around at the other women, then at Emeka. Her medical training helped her in recognizing the symptoms of a man in complete shock. "Emeka, what is happening here? Why are all these women claiming to be your girlfriend?" What followed was a systemic dismantling of Emeka's life that was both swift and thorough, executed with the precision of a military operation. The women, rather than fighting each other as Emeka had secretly hoped, banded themselves in a display of sisterhood that would have been heartwarming if it weren't so terrifying for him. They exchanged numbers, created a WhatsApp group called Emeka's Victims Support Group, and began coordinating their responses with the efficacy of a disaster relief organization. Aduni, with her banking connections and analytical mind, took point on the financial investigation. Within 48 hours, she had discovered that Emeka had been using her credit card recommendations to open accounts he couldn't afford. He borrowed money from her for his sick mother, who was actually perfectly healthy, living comfortably in Enugu, and had been using her professional reputation to secure discounts and favors around Lagos. She compiled a detailed report that would impress the EFCC. Kemi, with her creative network and social media savvy, became the public relations manager of Emeka's downfall. She created a series of Instagram posts with artistic flair and complete with professionally designed graphics that told the story of Lagos Playboy Alerts, a cautionary tale. Her posts included screenshots of conversations, photos of gifts he had given to multiple women, and a timetable that showed he had been juggling them all. The post went viral within hours, shared by everyone from fashion influencers to relationship bloggers. Blessing, with her church connections and prayer warrior network, launched what could only be described as a spiritual warfare campaign. She had the intercession team at her church praying for his soul while simultaneously warning every single sister, aunt, female cousin in a 50-mile radius about the wolf in sheep's clothing who was using the church to prey on godly women. Her pastor even used Emeka's story as a sermon, illuminating the importance of discernment in relationships. Fumi, with access to their shared workplace and her medical school network, became the local news anchor of Emeka's disgrace. She made sure everyone at Noon Bank knew about his character, and her friends on the medical field spread the word through their own circles. Soon, nurses, doctors and medical students across Lagos knew to avoid the marketing guy who thinks he's a player. 6 months later, Emeka sat in a small, sparsely furnished bedroom in Ibadan, working as a sales representative for a pharmaceutical company, the only job he could find after his reputation preceded him everywhere in Lagos like a bad smell. His once thriving social life has collapsed completely. The elaborate network of friends, contacts, and opportunities he had built over years had evaporated overnight when the story of his multiple relationships spread across Lagos social media faster than gossip at a village meeting. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, but he recognized the elegant script in the wedding invitation photo that followed his WhatsApp screen. It was Aduni getting married to a fellow banker she had met through a professional network event. The man was successful, honest, and treated her like a queen she deserved to be. The message included a note. "Thank you for showing me what I did not want in a husband. I'm marrying a man who thinks I'm enough all by myself. A grateful ex." The next day, another invitation arrived, this one with beautiful handwritten flourishes that spoke of Kemi's artistic touch. She was getting married to a fellow creative, a photographer who specialized in capturing the beauty of African fashion. Their love story had begun when he had volunteered to photograph her designs for free simply because he believed in her talents. Her note read, "I'm marrying someone who sees my worth and doesn't need to shop around for better opinions. Thank you for teaching me to recognize real love when I see it. Your replacement designer." A week later, Blessing sent a message with a photo of her engagement ring. Simple, elegant, and blessed at the church ceremony. She was engaged to a deacon from a neighboring parish, a man who had courted her properly and met her family, and even shared her faith genuinely. Her message was characteristically gracious. "I'm engaged to a man who loves God and loves me. We are building something beautiful together. I've forgiven you, and I will continue to pray for your soul, that you might find peace that comes from living in truth. Still blessed and highly favored." Even Fumi sent a card from Canada, where she was now completing her medical residency. She had married a fellow doctor, a man who supported her career and understood the demands of medical practice. Her note was professionally cordial. "Getting married next month in Toronto. Thanks for teaching me the red flags to avoid. My husband is exactly what I desired all along. Your former emergency contact." Emeka sat in his small apartment, surrounded by wedding invitations from women who had moved on to build beautiful lives with men who truly appreciated them, while he remained stuck in the consequences of his choices. The 4 women who had once competed for his attention were now living proof that his absence from their lives had been the greatest gift he could have given to them. His phone rang, interrupting his brooding. It was his mother, calling from the family compound in Enugu. "Emeka, your aunt from America, she called me. She said she saw some video of you on social media with some girls fighting at a shopping mall. She said people were calling you all sorts of names. What happened? Emeka closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his mother's disappointment across the phone, and said, Mama, it's a long story. I have time, my son. And Emeka, yes, Mama, start from the truth. This time, I raised you better than whatever it is I've been hearing about you. As Emeka began to tell his mother the real story of his downfall, he realized that for the first time in years, he was about to tell someone the complete truth. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. Outside his window, the evening call to prayer section echoed across Ibadan, mixing with the sounds of church bells and the everyday rhythms of a city that didn't know or care about his past. They say what goes around comes around, but in Emeka's case, it came around with interest, compounded daily, and with multiple witnesses. Love is not a game, but if it were, Emeka would have been the player who forgot the most important rule. Eventually, the game plays you. There are lots of morals from this story, but I will pick the one that strikes with me the most on integrity and character. Emeka's downfall teaches us that integrity isn't just about grand gestures. It's built in the small daily choices we make. When Chidi warned him earlier on, you think you are smart, but you are actually just organized stupid. He was highlighting a fundamental truth. Intelligence without integrity is just elaborate foolishness. Emeka's elaborate system of lies required constant maintenance, multiple phones, fake life, fake social media accounts, and exhausting mental gymnastics. A life built on truth, however complex it may seem, is always simpler than a life built on lies. To enjoy more interesting, intriguing African stories, please click the subscribe button, follow, share, comment and share with me your thoughts on this story. Till I bring you another intriguing African story, God bless you.